Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Author Speaks. My name is Renee Smith, and I'm the CEO and founder of Independent Authors Book Experience. We want to welcome you to this special edition we are celebrating Women's History Month, and we have an amazing author here who we are going to talk to and hear her story and find out why Women's History Month is important to her and what it is, why is representation so important? What is it about being a female author? So many questions we're going to ask her, and you're going to be along for the ride. But before we do, we just want to tell you a little bit about who we are. If you're just tuning in for the first time, Independent Authors Book Experience is a nonprofit organization that promotes and empowers independent authors through various workshops and events similar to this one, and with our mission being to promote literacy for all ages. And a few of the events that we have coming up outside of the Authors Speak, which we host monthly, we have our Children's Book Festival, which will be coming up in June, on June 10th. And that's going to be at the Warnaco Sports Center. So if you're a children's book author, please sign up. We still have a few spots left. And if you are a reader, bring your little ones. We have so many activities planned for them. We have yoga sessions, we have arts and craft, we have giveaways, book giveaways, crafts, supplies, you name it, it's going to be there. Bouncy house, popcorn. We have a lot of activities for the kids. It's just a great way to kick off the summer for the children. So, again, June 10th, 2023, from 12 p.m. to 3:30 at the Warnaco Sports Center. This is our first ever IABX Children's Book Festival. Secondly, our premier event is going to be our 10th annual, yes, I said 10th annual Independent Authors Book Expo and Literary Gala. And that's going to be held, our gala will be on September 29th, 2023, and we'll be honoring some of the authors and businesses that have been supporting us for the last 10 years. And then at the Independent Authors Book Expo, we're going to have an amazing group of authors. They're already signing up. Again, if you're an author and you have not signed up, you should try to sign up before March 31st, because that's when we have the early bird special. And then we have our event on September 30th, and we are partnering with Kane University Leadership Center to host this event. So please don't miss out, participate. And of course, we have our Author Speaks, which we're hosting today. And we host that monthly, the third Wednesdays of each month. And each month we feature a different genre. So we hope you can tune in. If you want to participate, please go to our website at www.iabx.org to participate or to learn more about how you can be a part of the event. Awesome. So without further ado, let us introduce to you our guest, Sharnette.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks
So
very much.
just let's go to town. Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharnette Bonasian, and I'm the author of Ada's Wash Day. I have a bit of a typo on the screen here. Quick fat fingers. Yes, I'm the author of Ada's Wash Day. This is it. It's my debut book of the Ada series. I can get onto that a little bit later, but I will be publishing 2 series across my lifetime, hopefully. And this story is basically a very sweet story which follows Ada and her mother during their weekly hair washing routine, which is affectionately known as Wash Day in the Black community. The book is really looking at the mother-daughter bonding and the ritual and that coming together that happens every week. The book is based on my own personal experiences with my own daughter, Adalia, who the book is named after. And it's really a way of empowering her to accept and love her own natural hair just the way it is, That's one. And then on the other 11, just to have that representation of girls that look like her in children's literature. So just girls or children doing regular things that's a part of their daily life, but that's reflected in literature. That's why I wrote this book.
Wonderful. And it's you just mentioned that it's important because you're writing about your children, and they say if you're going to write something, write about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more important than the experience that you've shared with your daughter with washing her hair and that process? And so many children of color go through that process
Yeah.
whether weekly, and I don't want to go. I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about the story without giving too much of the story, because we want people to buy the book, but just give us an idea of what the story entails with Ada and her wash day.
Okay, so the story begins with, which is, I think, a typical scene for a lot of families. Ada usually hates wash day. So Papa and Gabby are going off for a cycle, and Ada is complaining because she also wants to go outside, but we need to have her wash day. So it follows her experience of, not really looking forward to the event, really kind of resisting a little bit, but then Mama gently easing her into it, trying to bring her part of the experience, making wash day an experience for her and not something that's happening to her. So including her in the process, teaching her the steps, and just taking that time to speak to her, just communicate and just enjoy the process. So we have this beginning where it's quite low and she doesn't want to do it. Then obviously it crescendos into Mama teaching her how to do it, and then the end is obviously a positive one where Ada learns to care for her hair and love it. But there is a little twist at the end. So I think for me in this book isn't just for children. It also speaks to our inner child, particularly sort of Black women. If we go back sort of maybe 20, even 30 years ago, the relationship that we had with our hair, particularly our natural hair, was very different to what we see now. A
Yes.
lot of the time we all had relaxer or jerry curl or a texturizer. We did so many things to our hair to make it different, to really kind of adhere to that European standard of beauty. And when I look at kids now, they're really being encouraged and empowered to really embrace and represent the hair that's growing out of their head. So there is a
Yes.
little twist in the end where Mama also learns a little bit about herself as well.
And that is so important for us, for our children to appreciate who they are and where they come from and in their naturalness. Because
Mm-hmm.
as you said, it was just a few years back, I think, when I had my last son,
Mm-hmm.
that it was just too much. I had three children. I had a baby, and they were all under a certain age. And I was like, I'm not going to make it to the hairdresser. I'm just not going to do it.
Mm.
So I started doing a twist, and I think it may have been 6 years later. I just said, I'm done twisting, and I locked it. So
Yeah.
I can definitely appreciate that. And you know, I started out in corporate, so being in corporate, you have this, oh, you can't do this. Your hair is this, and you need to have your hair a certain way, especially if
Yeah.
you're in a particular um, I want to say area of
Mm-hmm.
business. And once you're starting to climb the ladder, your hair starts to go in a different direction. So you tend to go that way. But for me, I just appreciated my crown, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, and so I've had locks now for maybe 9 years or so. So
Nice.
I you walk into that, so I can
Yeah.
appreciate that whole concept.
And I absolutely identify with what you're saying. I mean, I also started off in corporate as well. And I think when I look back now, I used to have a weekly standing appointment to get my hair blow dried straight to make sure I looked presentable, professional, all
Hmm.
the things that they say our hair was not at the time. I mean,
Right.
now I mix it up a bit because for me, I think it's very important for me to also not just teach Adalia,
Yes.
love your own hair, but I've also got to be the role model to actually model that for her. It's not enough
Absolutely.
for me to just tell her these things. I've also got to do it. Okay, today my hair is straight, but that's the beauty of our own hair. We can do so many things with it. So yeah, I have it straight. I do twists. I leave it out curly, or sometimes I braid it. But yeah, so I totally understand where the viewpoint you're coming from that corporate life. And then even now, when we look at corporations and organizations like the Halo Code and the Crown Act in the US,
Hmm.
we're really coming together to really own that space and really empower others to really appreciate the hair just the way it is. And yes, our hair is professional in whatever form that we decide to take. And I
Yeah.
think that's a wonderful turn of events for people who rock their natural hair.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't want to miss because we have a few people are tuning in. So we want to say good evening. We have a good evening from Cadmus Hall. Thank you,
Good
Dr.
evening. Hi.
Allen. And of course, if you have any questions for Sharnette, please drop them in the chat. We'll pop them up on the screen. And then we want to just know you need to let us know what city and state you're tuning in from so we can say hi and hello. And you can, Sharnette, if you have any questions for Sharnette, I think my accent just keeps you shortening your name. Sharnette.
It's okay.
Sharnette. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll make sure to ask Sharnette about them. But as far as we going, we'll kind of bounce back between our questions. But what does Women History Month mean to you? Because as much as this is an author speaks, this is also we're also dealing with Women's History Month, and what
Mhm.
does it mean to you? Even as an author, Women's History Month.
Well, I think Women's History Month in general is important because it's really an opportunity for people to recognize and spotlight women in the past and
Mhm.
also in the present who are contributing to culture, society, or whatever. Because I think previously, when we think about contributions to modernity or science, everything else, women are sometimes often overlooked.
Yeah.
So something like a Women's History Month is really that opportunity to spotlight and put women in the forefront. It's also an opportunity to teach kids about women's contributions in the past and the things that they've done. Because when we think about things like, I don't know, the civil rights movements or, great authors, etc., we tend to
Mhm.
really highlight male authors or male
Yes.
civil rights activists. And actually, a lot of women contributed in both of these areas. So for me, it's really, really important just for that particular opportunity. Now, as a female writer in this month, I think the only thing that really stands out for me, like now when I look at the diversity of books that are available for kids
Hmm.
now, you can really see the breadth of opportunities for kids now. When I was growing up, I didn't really see that many books about women as central figures, as the key protagonists. And then when we say women, and then I didn't see the same for girls specifically, or even black girls or brown girls, or
Right.
black and brown women. So as an author, I think it's so cool now that you get to see so many of these books, like the little reader series, who spotlight famous and impactful women, like on Oprah Winfrey or
Yeah.
Beyonce or Rosa Parks, etc. Those sort of
Yeah.
books are so great. It really, really teaches kids about women's contributions to society.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do like about Women's History Month is that it's not only that it features the usual, because a lot of the times
Hmm.
you hear about the Oprahs and you hear about the Rosa Parks and you hear about the Harriet Tubman, but we're starting to dig deeper. There's so
Yes,
many
exactly.
people who are women that are doing great and amazing things in and around our community, and
Yes.
that are close by, that we don't even know that they're doing it because they're not shining the spotlights on themselves. And
Mm.
I feel like Women's History Month gives us that opportunity to highlight them, feature them, and focus on them. And I just want to just drop in a comment here from Cadmus. It is very necessary to highlight women and their importance in history and today. Absolutely, because there's so much, you know, um, I think when I started writing and publishing, even then, because I started, my books feature a young boy, Freddie, who's nine
Yeah.
years old. And I have three boys. So at the time when I wrote, I wanted to have them see themselves in books. They young boys represented in books, and
Hmm.
also in a positive way.
Yeah.
They are the main characters. They're the protagonists. They're the ones who are um, saving the day. Charging through, doing science and saving the planet. And so I wanted them to see themselves in a positive light. So
Yeah.
I started writing books that featured young boys of color.
Hmm.
I think you know now, I think 14 years later, there's so many books out there with diverse books with children of color and also women and female authors. So I think it's such a
Yeah.
good time for us now as female authors. Uh,
Absolutely, and I think that that push or that or the situation that we have now with so many diverse authors, and I think that's partly to do with the broadening and the availability of better self-publishing opportunities.
yes,
Because prior to maybe I would say 10, 15 years ago, most you'd have to be going down the traditional route with a traditional publishing company to basically get your stuff out there. And if you were a self-published author, people would kind of look down on you a little bit. But I
yes,
think with with Ingram Sparks and all the other companies, ADP with Amazon, it's really made it more accessible for people to really share and tell their story.
absolutely,
And I think you definitely can see the rise of all these diverse stories directly correlating to the growth of those modes of publishing.
absolutely, absolutely, and it is so necessary.
Mm.
I think so. Um, in terms of um, I know you wrote your book about Ada, and you said you were going to
Mm-hmm.
write more. But
Mm-hmm.
why did you choose this genre to write in, the children's book genre?
At the time when I wrote these books, it might have been, I want to say 2017, 2018. So I
Mhm.
actually wrote it a while ago, although I didn't publish until 2021. And the reason I did it is because I love telling stories. When I put my kids to bed, I'd make up stories and they'd love it. They'd laugh, they find it funny. But this particular one, I felt I really needed to do, and I really wanted my first one to be an ode to my daughter. So almost like a little love story to my daughter, but
Mhm.
not in poetry form. That I've done that to her separately. It's like a private thing.
Right.
But also, I actually love children's books. And when I when I had my kids, obviously I bought lots and lots of books. I was reading so many books all the
Mhm.
time, and I just found them fascinating. The fact that you can learn so many things, you can really be transported into a completely different place. You can get different perspectives on different people or different ways of doing things. And my
Mhm.
kids just love reading, so I would just read and read and read and read, and that kind of gave me the inspiration that I needed to think I can do this. And yeah, I did.
I know it seems like such a simple thing. It's like, I could I you think you can, so you did, type of thing.
Don't get me wrong, it was much like this. It wasn't just plain sailing all the way, because when I did write these stories, and I didn't just write one, I think I've written around seven, maybe
Okay.
four are complete. I actually tried to go down the traditional publishing route, and naively I sent it to a few, and I was like, yes, oh, I can't wait to get my offers in.
Yeah.
All I got was rejections, basically, or even like no replies. So that kind of
Mhm.
hit me a bit, and that's why I think there was a bit of a gap between when I actually decided to self-publish. So in the period from like 17 to 21, I used that time to just educate myself. And then I stumbled across my lovely publisher, Danny, from Conscious Dreams Publishing. And
Okay.
I felt, she really understood what I was trying to do. She really understood the story. And I think part of that is the fact that she's also a Black woman. So when we
Okay.
also talk about representation in the author space, we also need to look at diversity and representation in the publishing industry, because if you don't have diverse people on the other end,
Yes.
it's going to be very difficult to get more books like this into the traditional publishing forum. So I was very, very fortunate to come across Danny, who's a small independent publishing company in the UK. And then she really made me feel like, yeah, this is a fantastic story. People need and want to have this story. I love this story. I would have wanted this when I was a child. So she's
Right.
the one who really kind of helped me and mentored me along the way, and really supported me to get this book out in its physical form. So I'm
Right.
super happy.
And that is important because you always, yes, you can cheer for yourself, and you will need to, because there are times
Hmm.
when you won't have a cheerleader, but it's also good to have someone cheering you in the back saying,
Yeah.
this is really good. And when it's someone that looks like you, it feels more personal.
Yes.
It's like they understand you, know what I'm going through, you understand what it is. And I think maybe the reason sometimes that maybe a traditional publishing house may not, they cannot appreciate the story because um, they can't relate to the story,
Yes. Yeah.
and because of
Exactly.
that, they may think this is not relatable. Well,
Yes,
not to your
yeah,
audience, but to
yeah,
my audience, it
yeah.
is relatable because that's who I'm targeting, you know, and
Yeah, and also I think there's a bit of a there's a bit of an issue I find in general in that if you're a black or brown author, you automatically assume to only appeal to black or brown kids, when actually the themes that are running through these books are applicable, universal principles.
right,
So another reason why we need diversity within the publishing sector as a whole is just to kind of see past the color, the skin
yeah,
color, and actually just go through the bones of the story and recognize that there are principles. There's a great story. There's a great thread, and all children can benefit from not only learning about other people's experiences, but just
mm,
learning and reading a great story, which is
absolutely.
ultimately, as an author, what you want to do. You want to have people read and love your book.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that is, even for myself as a children's book author,
Mm-hmm.
I don't write books. Yes, my book features a young boy of color, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not just for children of color because my stories, I always try to do three things in my book: entertain, inform, and inspire. So
Nice.
the story is there for you to have fun, but there's
Yeah.
always a message in the story. I'm trying to tell you about something particular in my story, and then I'm inspiring you as a child or even an individual
Yeah.
to make a change with yourself, someone else, or in your community. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, that's something that is universe. It's beyond color. It's
Mm-hmm.
not when we have our characters in color, it's so that our children can see themselves. It's not
Yeah.
just, the story is not just for them,
Yeah.
and I think that is something that we need to make sure that is um, presented, um,
Absolutely.
presented more so.
Like
Um,
they say, books are mirrors.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I like growing up because I was an avid reader. I still read a lot. I read every day
Mm-hmm.
because for one, now it before I always read for entertainment and knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but now I read for it to calm me down.
Oh.
it is my it is my zen space when I'm after a long day. it I just wipe away everything because I'm reading a book. I just have to focus. I get into the
Yeah.
story and it's just there for me. So reading is such an integral part of who I am. So I'm always encouraging someone to read a book because once you get into it, it's just something that you just can't stop. Once you
Yeah.
find your right genre, because I don't like reading. um, so for you, what was the hardest part of writing the book or the series? Because you've written several, you've only published this first one, but what was the hardest
Mm-hmm.
part you think?
I think it's the illustrations process, actually. I think
Oh,
that's the hardest part, particularly for this sort of book. So if
mm-hmm,
you're writing a children's picture book, the most important thing are the pictures and the illustrations. And I don't say that to take away from the story or the writing of the author, because that is obviously integral. But when you're working with an illustrator, it's really, are you able to communicate your message like
mm-hmm,
on each page of what the central thing is on that page, and does it pop out? So for me, I think I could see the kind of change in my growth in being able to communicate effectively to my illustrator what I wanted, what my vision was, and really taking that control and ownership, but also using that opportunity to really bounce off ideas with someone else. So that was probably the hardest bit, is letting go a little bit and being a
mm-hmm,
little bit more open-minded, someone else's perspective, who probably has a little bit who had much more experience than I did, because she'd done quite a few books, whereas this was my first book. So yeah, that was it. It's letting people in, getting that feedback, and really being very clear about the direction, the themes, the ideas, and how you want the look and feel of the book to be. So we spent a little time at the beginning,
mm-hmm,
after I'd written the book and edited it. And then we spent a little bit of time trying to create the characters. So I spent quite a bit of time emailing her, trying to say to her, the reasons why, like the why of my book. Because I
mm-hmm,
think that's a central anchor for anyone who's looking to write a story, is what is your why? Like, what is the purpose here? Are you just doing this book to jump on a bandwagon or to make a few coins or whatever? Or
yeah,
is it because you feel you have a story to tell to a specific group of people, which targets a specific issue or problem or challenge that you want to highlight. Do you want to educate? Do you want to inspire? Do you want to empower? Do you want people to dream? Like, what is the purpose? And then if you really are clear on that, then you can really come out and create beautiful illustrations that match the
Mhm.
purpose. Because
Yeah.
if you look through a lot of children's books, the style of illustrations will vary based on the story that they're trying to tell. So yeah, that was, I think, the hardest bit and the longest, actually, because that took us what, 5 6 months
Oh, the
to
illustration.
illustrate what, 30 pages. So at first I was like, this is going to be done and dusted within a month, within 6 weeks, and 9 months later I'm like, my book, where's my book?
And I think writing and illustrating gives teaches you patience.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Because the story, you can get the story written, you crank it out really fast, you have the story and it's done, you get it
Hmm.
edited, boom boom boom, you're good to go, and now you're like, yes, illustration time. You're like, huh?
What do you mean it's going to take 2 weeks to do me like first draft?
I remember my first book, the first children's book that I had, which is The Great Compost Heap. And
Yeah.
I found an illustrator, and he started doing some illustrations. And then, this is the first time. So I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He sent me them back, and I'm like jumping out of my skin, and I'm like, yes. And then I sat down for a minute, and then I started to go through with my analytical mind, and I'm going through the illustrations like, this is not what I want. This is not it. I ended up having to walk away from that illustrator because he just could not get what I
Mm.
wanted. And that it the images, it wasn't representing who the character that I wanted. Just the first, I think he gave me like first 3 pages,
Yeah.
and he said that's not it. So I can definitely, and I think I until I found the my illustrator, the one I've worked with him now on 6 books, because I
Oh
have
wow.
wow, I have 7 8 children's books. I'm trying to remember.
Amazing.
So I've worked with him on several. I think only one book I worked with someone else, another
Hmm.
illustrator. But for the most part, my Freddie series, which has 5 books, he's done all the
Hmm.
books in the series. And I see a lot of authors, they go from illustrator to illustrator, and they kind of hop around a little bit. And but
Yeah.
I think, for me doing a series, I wanted some continuity. And
Exactly.
you know, him knowing my style and already know my crazy. So
Yeah, I completely agree because I'm actually currently working on my second book, which is the first of the other series with the same illustrator as well. Because I loved her style, I like the warmth, and we spend a lot of time perfecting the characters, and the characters kind of blend into each other, like they're in the same world, they exist at the same time, it's part of the same family. So yeah, so hopefully we can continue that relationship.
yeah.
We'll see. I hope to be like you, 7 books deep, like within a few years.
Well, you already have the stories. It's just a matter of you cranking them out and putting them on paper.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's the thing I don't want to do is crank them out,
Well,
because even though I like did this book, did it, edited it, illustrated. Even when we're illustrating, I still re-edited it. You're just moving things around, chopping and changing, and especially if your illustrator is great and she's conveying lots on the page, you can actually strip it back even more, like
yeah,
less language, and really let the illustrations say things for themselves. So you really then go back and like make sure you have like really good use of language. I think there's one thing that I wish I'd done more of is really stripped back a little bit more. I'm already thinking to do a second edition of this book, which I
okay,
wanted to, which I wanted to release for the first year anniversary last year. But with our move to the US, I thought, okay, I can't do all of this at the same time. So maybe for the second anniversary this year, I think I will make a few changes.
okay. And I think for me though, what I spend a lot of time writing and editing.
Mm.
So once I'm done with that process and I go to the illustration portion of it, I'm really just focusing on the illustration.
Ah,
So
okay.
I really spend a lot of time. I go through a series of hard cuts, hard
Yeah.
edits. I strip. I have several people who read my story. My
Mm.
children read it. My husband reads it. I have a lot of different people from different backgrounds read it. And I say to
Yes.
them, I don't tell them it's my story. I just send it to them and say, let me know what you let me know what you think. And they're like, well, I think here, why did you put this, and why did you? And I fine tune it, and I tweak it again, and I tweak it again, and
Yeah.
so I go through a series of. It takes me a while to get my. So when I use the word, I use the word crank loosely.
Yes, yes, yes,
Um,
because you're,
yeah, just to do it, but it takes me a few months just to edit my story
yeah,
because I go through a series of edits. So
yeah,
when I get to the illustration part, I am just ready to
you're
go.
ready.
So yeah, I have it in my head what I want. I know, and I guess after you get to like book 2 or 3, you kind of okay, I already know where I am. I just
Yes,
know
exactly.
what words here. And even then, sometimes I change my mind and then I end up having more illustrations because I feel like one doesn't quite get it, and I do
Mm.
an additional um, um, what you may call it, illustration or image or something. So, but my advice to you would be spend more time on the edit.
On the edits. Yeah, I agree. I'm just a little messy right now.
It's
And even
okay.
when I think I've edited, but then when I see the illustrations and I think, hmm, I could shorten this a bit. I could change this a little
Do
bit,
you have an
make it a
outside
little.
editor? Do
Yes,
you?
yes. Danny, who also did this book, I do have an outside editor, but
Okay.
even but during that illustration phase, I tend to think, I can see it. But I'm also thinking long term. And my big dream is to put this on the screen because I think
Okay.
when I write it, it feels like it should be said out loud.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm already positioning for one day, hopefully, to get it on the
Absolutely.
screen. So
Absolutely.
that's where I see these books ending up at some point, hopefully.
And you have to dream big. I think if you don't, if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough, as they say.
Amen. Absolutely. I love that phrase. I use that phrase all the time as well. And it sounds like a joke, but if you really do shoot for the stars, you might just hit the moon. So, yeah, dream big, people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know you're working on other books in the series, but have you considered writing in any other genre of
I have actually. I love romance.
oh,
I don't look like it. I don't come across that way. I can be quite cynical, but I do love reading romantic novels sometimes, right? But romantic novels with a little twist. So I
okay.
have kind of dabbled in the idea of romance writing. I tried to do a young adult one and it was awful. So I think that's just not my vibe. That's not my that's not my genre. But yes, romance or just screenplay. Like I have great ideas for like movies. I love
Yeah,
movies. I love seeing things play out. I love telling stories. So yeah, watch this space. If I can get my act together and get
yeah.
myself together, then yes, I would like to explore that side a bit further.
That is interesting because the I like romance. I like reading historical romance.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
yeah, I like reading historical romance. That's my ah, I love that. But I don't find myself in that space of writing.
Mm,
Right now, I'm in my mind. I'm trying to work myself up to a children's chapter book.
yes, yes,
I,
exactly.
I find myself. I find that I prefer to write in a shorter space, a picture
Hmm.
book style.
Same.
So it's I like that space.
I
So
feel
I've
like the chap. Sorry, go ahead.
no go ahead.
I feel like the chapter books, they're fascinating because when I read them, I think this is crazy. My daughter loves to read them, and I think this makes no sense. But why? But yeah, so you see, I'm asking too many questions, so I just clearly don't get it. I don't get that age group. I don't get what they're after. So when I tried it, it was really really bad. Um, but it's very difficult to do because you really have to transport these kids into a place where they can really immerse themselves in it. Because with the picture books, you tend to kind of consume a bit slower, I think. you slow down, you look at the illustrations, or you read with a parent or a caregiver. I mean, you might read on your own, but picture books lends itself to reading with someone else, and that
Mhm.
tends to be with an adult. Whereas chapter books are for the child only. It's just for
Mhm.
themselves. They consume that on their own, and they will just sit there and read like 40, 60 pages. But if you give them a picture book, they're never going to go through it that quickly. So there's something about the chapter book that really draws these kids in. So you have
Yeah.
to really, really get that age group, get that psyche, and really kind of speak to them so that they can just consume it voraciously. And I don't think I'm that right, not for that age group.
I keep promising myself that I'm going to. So one of these days, I'm going to continue to. I'm putzing around with an idea, and I'm putting it on paper, and I think I'm thinking of each chapter as a little book. This
Hmm.
way, it will inspire me to write
Ah, yeah, yeah. That's
because
that's a good idea.
that's how I think. I think, okay, I finish one book, I go to the next book, and then connect them with
Yes.
connectors,
Mm.
so that there's like, okay, one to the next to the next. So I'm working on it. I think I that's my big thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my big
Yeah.
thing. Um,
Awesome. I can't wait to see it.
ah, now I put it out there. Now I'm stressed. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna
I'm
start.
gonna like message you in 1 year and be like, when I get the pop up on my memories, I'm like, aha.
Did she write the book yet? But it's one of those things, you think about it, and so hopefully in the not too distant future, that's something that I can work on. um but in the sphere of kind of going back to like
Hmm.
Women's History Month, in the sphere of um being an author, and
Hmm.
who has been your I would say favorite female author or favorite female figure, or someone that you look up to in this sphere, that
Hmm.
you say, I look at her and I say, this is someone that I can emulate.
Hmm. Well, I have two, I would say. The first one is Julia Donaldson. And I know she's uber famous, and it feels a little cheesy to say that, but who doesn't love her? The books are amazing. And when I think about my introduction to children's books, The Gruffalo was the first book that I bought for my kids. And it was such a great story. So we read that story at least 100 times, I can say. And we really used that to not only just feed their love of learning and reading, but also helping them to read themselves, helping them to articulate, helping them to write and everything. So that's one. But I love how she's got her own style. It's very clear that it's her. Also, being very consistent with her illustrator. So immediately, from listening, from looking, all the senses, immediately that that's one of her books.
Hmm.
I love how she also took risks and really branched out and really challenged and pushed herself, but still maintaining that rhyming scheme that is just absolutely fantastic. So I would say the success that she's achieved, the way that she's managed to churn out all these books, it makes me wonder whether she's got little elves in her writing room helping her churn them out. So yes,
She's
I'm
really
inspired.
cranking them out, right?
So I'm inspired by her success, and you get the sense that she actually does love what she's doing.
Hmm.
My second woman, I would say, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember the name, but it's the person who writes these books, Saturday. Um, oh, okay. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back.
Okay. I know we're
I've drawn a blank. I can see the books, and literally, I cannot remember her name all of a sudden. I'll come back to you.
It'll come back to you, no worries. um and I know you're a new author, but in terms of barriers, have you found any barriers in your writing career due to being a woman? Have you
Hmm.
experienced any?
I would say for sure I'm a new author, but I am a writer. And I think there is a bit of a difference, right? An author is someone who's published,
Hmm.
you've managed to get your stuff out there. But at heart, I'm a writer. I've always written. I've always loved writing. I write little stories. I used to like write little plays for me and my sister.
Hmm.
Yeah, all that. And I also write for myself. Like I find writing as a form of therapy to some extent, and really
Okay.
the opportunity to really work out challenges and issues. And that's where this book actually stemmed from as well. It was really, I was almost heartbroken when I thought about some of the challenges that my daughter was going through. I was born in St. Lucia, so I was born surrounded by people who looked like me. So for me, I
Right.
never had any question about, how I look or my hair, or not really like at all, because everyone else looks like you. Everyone else has the same hair
Right.
type. There's loads of different textures and whatever, and it's just celebrated. Everyone is unique in their own way. But because my kids were born in the Netherlands, we didn't have any family in the Netherlands,
Mm-hmm.
so they didn't really have a lot of role models, a lot of people that they could look to that were similar to them, with similar culture or background. So when she started school and going to school, she's no longer in under my protection.
Right.
She was really getting to all these challenges with people. And when I say challenges, I would say people just either explicitly hating on her or just
Mm.
making her feel small, making her feel bad, like, all
Right.
your skin, or why does your hair look like that? Or you're ugly. I remember distinctly one day we went to the park, beautiful summer's day, and my daughter left her hair out, and her hair is like, 4C texture. So, there's a lot of shrinkage, but she has this beautiful texture, beautiful hair. And she looked great. She was wearing a little lovely t-shirt and some shorts. And she's very tall and elegant and graceful, my daughter. So when she's walking across the room, you kind of sense her being there. And
Yeah.
then sometimes when you have someone who has that light, sometimes I think some kids just want to dampen your light. And she was waiting her turn to go down the slide, and this girl just pushed her and said, "Ugh, you're ugly, move."
Oh
And you
wow.
could just see her face like just drop, and my heart broke in that instant, because I just thought, oh, how can I shield and protect my child from this? Because
Right.
what is my reaction here? I can either go over and scream at this little child and be like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Blah blah blah. But
Right.
so I just spoke to the parent and I said, my daughter was really hurt by what your daughter just said to her. She said she was ugly for no reason. And I really like to say that, I think that's not very cool. And I really love it. I really like your daughter to apologize to my daughter for that, because it wasn't cool. And yeah, her mum, did ask her to do that and to work it out. But there were so many instances of things like that, and it just kept beating down on her. And you
Mm-hmm.
could tell when she would say things like, "Oh," I'd be like, "Oh, let me just iron this for you." "Oh, I don't need to look perfect." "Oh, I don't. It doesn't matter. I don't care what I look like." Or, "Let's brush your hair." "No, why do you want me to look cute? I'm not cute. I'm not pretty. It's
Oh
fine. It's good." And this is like a 5-year-old. My God,
wow.
yeah. So I was just infuriated. So this book was like my love story for her, to let her
Yeah.
know that she's beautiful, she's unique, but also to show her that, because she knows that I used to tell stories, and I told them I want to publish this book. So for them to see me going through the rejections and then
Mm-hmm.
taking charge, taking control, going through that process, it's a real good example for them that they can follow. So if someone tells you no, that's okay. It's probably no
Mm-hmm.
for that moment, or
Yeah.
not appropriate for that specific person, and you
Mm-hmm.
can just do it. You work on it. You find your tribe. You find people that's going to support you, uplift you, and empower you, and you can get it done. So a long-winded way of saying where my point here.
No, and it's that is important, and I commend you for um taking that role with your daughter, because a lot of times that happens to our children, and you were able to witness it, and you could see that, because that happens a lot, and children don't say anything about it, and you
Mm,
just see them slowly declining, and you're wondering what's going on. So
yeah,
you being able to recognize that and see that, and then empowering her through your example, is definitely a good way to show her, you are more than your hair, you're more than the
absolutely.
color of your skin, and
Yeah.
yes, you have your hair, but you're beautiful. Your black
Hmm.
is beautiful, and I think there's a book about with the same title, Your Black is Beautiful. So
Yeah.
um
Peggy Sue, I'd love to know what book you just bought.
yeah, I'm just putting
Um,
that up now.
oh yeah.
I just bought a book about failure in writing. Um, Peggy, if you could just drop that in the chat, and we could, she always, when she was you're telling your story, she said, "Yuck, how awful," and it really just makes you feel very sad
Mm,
when you hear that about the things that children experience, and
yeah.
children can be very mean, but also adults can be mean too, because
Mm-hmm.
you go through okay, she says she'll go through her phone.
Thank
um,
you.
we go through these things, and being able to for her to see herself. So now I'm in a book. That just puts her on a different sphere. A book was
Absolutely.
written for me. this is about me, you
And I
know.
think also seeing someone who looks exactly like her. So
Yes.
when we were first kind of working out the character for Ada, the first iteration was, you know, very, very light-skinned girl with like really big, fluffy clouds of hair. And I was like, but this is not my daughter. I
Absolutely.
want someone who looks like my daughter, a brown-skinned girl with 4C hair, you know, who wears glasses because that's what she does, you know, big teeth because she had big teeth at the time. She was
Hmm.
still growing into her face. That's the kind of girl I want. I want a girl who is a little quirky, you know, has a little bit of sass, isn't your typical kind of girly girl because she plays lots of sports. She's very active, she's very confident, but also very elegant. So as you can imagine, my description to the illustrators thinking, what kind of magic Supergirl is this? But yeah, but it was very important for me to showcase a girl with that sort of hair, with that type of hair, that 4C tight hair, because you rarely see it either on TV and you
Hmm.
rarely see it in books. It's always, you know, very long, very big, fluffy curls. I mean, some people have that hair and it's beautiful and it's great, but there are the others. So when I meet girls or boys as well who've read the book and they're like, she looks just like me, her hair is just like
Yeah.
mine. I love that. I really love that.
And that is so that is so important. Um, the book it's on writer and failure. So it's
Awesome. Thank you.
thank you, Peggy.
Let me write that down before I forget.
And if you do, you can go back to, because it'll go live on um, YouTube and Facebook. So you'll be able to pull that information there as well.
Oh,
If you,
yes, yes.
yeah. Um, so as we're talking about what advice would you give to um, an author just starting out? As whether it's a female author or a male author, what would your
Yeah.
advice be?
Hmm. I have a lot. I would most definitely say first things first is try to slow it down. I think when you start the process, you really want it to be quick, and you can do that, and that's also fine. But really take the time to learn, particularly in the first stages. And I think it will pay off when you're in your fourth or your fifth book. But take things step by step. And there are lots of different approaches that you can take. You can do it on the traditional publishing route. You can do completely self-publishing, do everything yourself, like uploads and everything to Amazon yourself, or you can do a hybrid model where you utilize like a publishing company or maybe an independent one, like I did, but you also get input in the way that the story is shown and told and everything else. Also, really plan out your story. So think about beginning, middle, and end, the basics to begin with. What is the thread? What's the key message in that story? And then
Hmm.
make sure that you arc back to that, or make references to it throughout your story. Take your time to edit. You can self-edit, but in similar process that you did, Renee, and that I did as well, I shared my story with some of my closest friends, and as you say, friends from different backgrounds, different perspectives, because they will
Hmm.
look at things from a different way. I also shared them with my kids, but also other people's kids, and then got their feedback, like
Yeah.
they didn't really like this sentence, or that doesn't make sense, or a child will never sound like that. Things
Yeah.
like that. Really use that to help you write a better story. Um, and once you've written your book, that's the easy bit, by the way.
Yeah.
Most people think that's the hard bit. No, 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 no. That's the easy bit. The real hard bit is actually after you've published your book in getting those sales. I mean, there
Yeah.
is a statistic that says that most self-published or independently published authors sell like 300 books. Oh no, 100 books, 100 odd books in their lifetime. So it's a very crowded marketplace. It's very
Hmm.
difficult to stand out, and you really, really need to get your messaging right, and you need to do your marketing properly. So with my first book, I don't think I did enough of the pre publishing marketing and getting my name out there because I
Hmm.
didn't really know that I had to or how to do it, etc. So I think I only started maybe 2 to 3 weeks before publishing date, which is like thinking that's insane. For my second book, I'm going to start 3, 4 months before my publishing date because once you start getting your name out, then people will learn, love that book, then people will advocate for you. And
Right.
also, don't be afraid to get people to help you. Like, get a launch team. There are people who are so excited about children's book that they will help you spread the word about your book.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
try to collaborate with other people who are either similar themes, similar genres, similar type of authors, etc. build a community around your book, around your story. But in reverse, don't forget to support and share other people. So it's not just about you getting your book out there and getting known, but how are you advocating? How are you sponsoring other people? How are you supporting their work as well? And we
Right.
can do that, yes, by buying the books, that's one, but you can also, I don't know, buy a book for a friend, buy a book for a friend's child, share their work on social media, share it in different spaces.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say, um, in a long way. I guess I'm breaking it down by steps, but sorry, I'm a coach. I'm a leadership and development coach and a consultant. So yes,
it's
that's
it's a, it's a process, and it's important because um a lot of the times, it's that hurry up.
mm-hmm.
I spoke to someone who wanted to write a children's book, and he said to me, "Hey, Renee, I want to write a children's book. I want to write a book for my son. I know what I'm going to write. Um, do you think I can?" So, say for instance, it was February. He's like, "I want to get it done like by within 2 weeks." I was like, "Okay." Uh,
Okay. It's
it was
possible.
just like, just it felt like he said yesterday, but that it was just the timing. I said, okay, these are the things that you will need.
Hmm.
If you have all of that, by all means, in 2 weeks. But just from experience, it has taken me a while to get my story um, to the published state. So
Been the longest time it's taken for you from like writing to publishing day?
um, my first book took me 4 months
Hmm.
from writing the story to getting it published.
Yeah.
And I think maybe my fourth book. So the fourth book was actually written somewhere after number one,
Okay.
and it took me 3 years because I've been publishing a book each year
Mm.
consistently since I published the first one.
Yeah.
So I publish, then I promote, I put it out there, and then in the midst of that, I get another story idea and I start working on it, and I, go through it, pound it out, pound it out. But this fourth one, Freddie Goes to the Beach,
Hmm.
it took me like 2 years
Mm.
to finish, not just finish the story, but I kept saying to myself, what is the message? What am I
Mm.
trying to say? It just
Yeah.
I could not get the message out of the story when I read it.
Hmm.
And I said, you're not done. So I kept putting it down and I'd take it back up and I'd do some more writing and moving around of information. And then I put it, I said, nah, it's not ready. And I'd have someone read it and they'll say, they'll give me an idea, but I still couldn't find the message. What was my message?
Yeah.
And then once I found what the message was, that's when it really came together for me. Like it
Hmm.
just went like boom, boom, boom. I said, I think it was, I forget what year are we in, 2023, 22, 23, 20. I think 22. So at the end of 2021,
Yeah.
becoming to December, I said to myself, you are not going into 2022 without finishing this book or whatever year it was, either if it was 2020 or 2021. But I
Yeah.
remember it was a December, and I was literally, when everybody was probably partying, I was here cranking out the story. I said, I refuse to go into the new year without this book being done. We're not doing this. And I sat here and I just kept rewriting and writing it until when I was done with it, I think it literally was probably like 11:30, December 31st. I'm cranking out a story. I was determined not to take it into the new year, not done. And when I was done, I felt good about it because I knew my message. And like I said
Yeah.
to you, I like to entertain, inform, and inspire. So
Yeah.
really, when I was done, I could tell you what my message was for that book. And the book really deals with family,
Hmm.
your immediate family and extended family, having that time with them, um, enjoying the time, doing activities with them, and
Yeah.
really just understanding the dynamic of family. And once I could get that message, I said, ah, that's it. Because before it just felt so loosey goosey. Like you can't put this stuff up. You can't do that. And
I
I'm
hear you.
and I think I'm am I what maybe my biggest critic. And one thing I would add to your list is that you have to have a thick skin when it comes to
Mm,
being a writer or an author. If you have the desire to be published, you
mm-hmm.
have to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
One, because you're going to have someone edit your work and they're going to tell you this does not work. This is not it. And you have to be like, okay, humble pie, go back to the drawing board. And you
Yeah.
have to be okay with that because if you want your story to make an impact, you want to be able to have that solid story that when people read it, they're going to say, I get it. The children are going to
Yeah,
get it.
exactly.
Adults
Yeah.
are going to get it. I have my first children's book, The Great Compost Heap, and I I wrote the book and I have adults buying the book because it deals with composting. People are buying the book
Hmm.
because they want to. One lady, she emailed me. She's like, "Oh, Renee, I'm using it at home. So what do you think I should do?" Da, da, da. So it's not just for children. They can enjoy, but it's a book that I think adults and children can enjoy together. So
Yeah, that's
it's
nice.
important for me and that as an advice, have that thick skin. Um, and then not only that, but you have once your book is published and you go online and people start reviewing your book, you know, as great as you think your book is, there's somebody out there who's going to be like, well, I don't know. You have to be okay with them not being okay with your book.
Yes, yes.
So that thick skin right there is definitely something I would say. So I know we're getting close to the end, but I just wanted to ask you um, two more things. And these are questions I always ask my authors. Um, do you use a pen and paper or do you use your computer?
I actually use notes in my phone. I just write like when something comes up to me. So I have like all these little bits and ideas, and it could be anything from like a skeleton, a character outline, or one little bit of conversation or something. So I just put it all in notes and then I transfer it to Google Docs as
Okay.
and when. And then I read it again, reshape it, or tweak it, and things like that. That's my choppy method.
Okay. I'm a pen and paper and then I transfer to the computer. I
Ah,
find I like to do longhand and I write it out um and I do
oh,
all these arrows in my notes all over the place and then I put it on paper and then I've learned Google Docs, so that's also
yes.
good because it saves it as I'm going because the way my mind goes, I just walk away from a story and forget to save it. So I'm happy for Google Docs, and I just found the Google Talk when you talk into the your
Yes, yes.
yeah, I actually like that feature. So I've been using that
I
a bit.
prefer to write actually when I'm without hearing myself back. Otherwise, I find I get distracted by the sound of my voice.
It's the but it's talk to text.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I just don't. Yeah, I just don't because I can hear myself speaking. I prefer to silent, silent composition.
I'm okay with it now. So I
Yeah.
use it. I don't use it often, but like I find if I'm in a space where I have something and I don't have my
Hmm.
and I just found out I can do it on my phone too. I just pull my phone up and I can just say something really quickly and save it and I can go back. So that helps me. And then last but not least, we need to let everyone know how they can find you, Charnette.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram on @_ little big stories, or I'm also on Facebook at, oh, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't. Oh, you put something, sorry.
Oh, to your screen.
Yeah. Oh, you can find me on Facebook at Charnette Donasier. You can find out a bit more about me and my books on www.littlebigstories.eu. I used to live in the Netherlands, hence the EU bit at the end. Unfortunately, my shop is actually disabled on my website at the minute because I've just actually moved to New York. So I'm going to reset everything back up again under a new business and register all the background things that need to be done. But yeah, so reach out, let me know if anyone wants to collaborate. I'm also a coach, and actually by the end of the year, and I've been putting this off for a year now, I am going to be launching, I think, either a online course, digital course, or a group program to help other people who want to start writing and publish their own children's picture book get started, and basically give them the blueprint that I use, and yeah, a space that they can talk, form a community, and yeah, empower themselves to complete and get their book out there. So I will let
Excellent.
you all know when that's going to be coming out.
Excellent. And please do come back when you have your second book ready. We are
Yeah,
excited to hear about what else Ada has in store for us, because that's exciting. And,
yeah,
that representation is very important. So we thank you for sharing your story with us and to share Ada with us. And we wish you all the best. And
yeah.
before you
This is
go,
my book.
it's Ada's wash day.
Yeah,
And Charnette, I'm going to butcher Donasian. Did I get
yeah.
that right?
Well done. Yes.
So we just want to thank Charnette for being here. And the books are also on Amazon.
Yes, you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kindred Stories, my publisher's own bookshop, so Conscious Dreams Publishing Bookshop. You can find it in a lot of different places. Yeah,
Excellent, excellent. So if you, even though you can't get it on the in on her website, um, definitely go to Amazon, and all where books are. So I think if you just search up the book, it may just come up, and you can pick whichever ones you choose to support. And thank you, Peggy, for being a part of our show. We want to thank everyone who has been listening, popping in, popping out, and participating. We appreciate you stopping by and just
yeah,
listening to us talk about, Women's History Month. It's very important, as we said, to have representation as female authors, as women of color. It is very important that um, we are represented, and that we also represent our children of color in the books that we write, so that
yeah.
they can have a space to be themselves and to be appreciated. So we want to thank you, Charnette, for being here, and we look forward to seeing you. And I'm just going to do a little bit more housekeeping before we leave, and just a reminder about our upcoming events. If you want to participate, if you're a children's book author, we have our Children's Book Festival coming up on June 10th at the Warnaco Sports Center on June 10th from 12 to 3:30. And we have a lot of activities for the children. You don't want to miss that. Free giveaways. We have books from Scholastics. We have yoga sessions. You name it, we're going to have it there. So you come on out, bring the children. And then our premier event is our 10th annual Independent Authors Book Expo. So excited. Can't wait for it to happen. And also our literary gala. So this is our first time having the gala, and we're so excited. We'll be featuring and honoring authors who have been with the IABX family since almost the beginning. And that's September 29th and September 30th. And all of this information is on our website, www.iabx.org. So thank you, Ms. Charnette, and thank you all for being a part of our show. And we will
Thank you
see
so
you.
much for having me, Renee, and giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with you and share my work. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
And you're not too far from me, so we can probably connect in person.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You take care, Charnette, and
All right.
enjoy. Be well.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.